Well, Ohio State has its way with the Indiana Hoosiers in a big top 5 matchup. We'll have that plus all the action around the Big Ten. It's Locked On Big Ten Live right now. We got a big one for you here. Stay tuned.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten Live here on a late Saturday afternoon into the weekend. I'm Craig Shemon, 40 years as a sports talk show host and play-by-play announcer. And I want to thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you get started with $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com and get started. Well, Ohio State was just bigger, stronger, faster, and two key special teams plays did Indiana in today. As they move on, we'll set the table with the Big Ten championship game and how that looks. Not quite set yet. Plus all the other games going on. Illinois and Rutgers going down the wire as we speak. Plus, we'll have the nation's first look at Rivalry Week next weekend and Week 14. But let's pick it up with our thoughts on the Indiana at Ohio State game. It was a gray, cold, wet November day in Columbus, Ohio. It was great. It was football weather, man. A football weather day. Top 5 matchup. 5th-ranked Indiana. Number 2, Ohio State. The knock on Indiana, despite being undefeated and blowing people out all season long, was, hey, they haven't really played the highest competition. So this was a big test. The number 2 Buckeyes, their third top 5 opponent of the season. Started out Ohio State 3 and out, punting the ball, and then Indiana marches 11 plays, 70 yards. Tyson Lawton, a 2-yard touchdown, and Indiana is up 7-0. They came to play. That'd be about it for the Hoosiers overall. Meanwhile, Ohio State, they come back with a 15-play drive. They had a couple of penalties they had to overcome. Interesting part of the game at the end of the first quarter, Curt Cignetti called a timeout with seconds remaining in the first quarter, even though there was going to be a break at the quarter. But as it turns out, it gave him his defense about 5 minutes of real-time rest right there going into the second quarter. And IU stopped Quinshon Judkins on a 4th and goal from the 2-yard line. Indiana took over on downs. We had ourselves a ball game going into the second quarter. But IU's drive stalled. They had a penalty. The Buckeyes started blitzing, and Indiana couldn't pick up the blitz. All this was a theme throughout the day. Curtis Rourke sacked, and Indiana had to punt. Ohio State gets the ball back on a short drive, short field, if you will. 5 plays, 44 yards. Now Ohio State's starting to click in a little bit. Got to give a shout out to their offensive line, which was piecemeal. They had some injuries. They had to move some guys around. They actually looked pretty good all day long. Will Howard ended up finding Emeka Egbuka at the for 11-yard touchdown. This tied the game with over 7 minutes to go in the second quarter. At this point, Will Howard was 14 out of 14 for 116 yards. Incredible. Game tied at 7. Looks like we're settling in for a pretty good game at this point. Again, IU, they blitzed. Rourke didn't see it coming. He fumbled the ball. Ohio State covers the ball up at the IU 18. Indiana looks like it could be in trouble. The momentum completely shifted to Ohio State at this point. And again, another short field for the Ohio State Buckeyes. But a Will Howard pass was intercepted. It was tipped and intercepted. Jalen Walker with a pick for the Hoosiers at their own 11-yard line. This is about 6 minutes to go in the second quarter. It was huge. The momentum flipped right back, and the Hoosiers are like, hey, we came here to play. We're going to punch them back. We're ready to go. And, Indiana looked like at this point, when they moved the ball, they were getting on rhythm, staying on schedule, weren't getting themselves in any situations of 3rd and longs. But then Rourke got sacked again for the 3rd time at this point. So now they're off schedule. Now it's 2nd and 18. They try a draw play for 2 yards on 3rd down. I thought that was clearly to force Ohio State to burn its 2nd of 3 timeouts so they wouldn't get the ball with too much time left at the end of the half. Indiana's thinking, let's go into the locker room with this game tied at 7. but disaster struck the Hoosiers at this point. With a minute 47 to go in the quarter. IU's punter, I don't know if the ball was wet or if he took his eye off of it, but on the snap, it went right through his hands. He muffed it. This is James Evans, their punter. Ohio State takes over 1st and goal on the 7-yard line. Absolute disaster for the Hoosiers. You just could feel all the air come out of their sidelines at this point. And IU's red zone defense, which had been pretty good throughout the day, couldn't stop Travion Henderson from marching in with 21 seconds to go. And now, again, Ohio State's offensive line looking good. A lot of good push here. And now Ohio State goes into the locker room up 14-7. It felt like a lot more at that point. The momentum had definitely shifted. Indiana was just tanked going into the locker room. So, but they were going to get the ball back in the second half. They could reestablish themselves. It was only 14-7 at this point. But then they had a fumble on their first drive. Luckily for them, their center jumped on it. Then they had to delay a game because the crowd was starting to get a little noisy at this point. Indiana, 3 and out. They punt. Remember, they had a disaster punt at the end of the first half where they went through the punter's hands on the snap. Now they punt to Ohio State to start the second half. And Caleb Downs lets it bounce in front of him, then picks it up, makes a couple guys miss, and he's gone. 79 yards for a touchdown. It is the first punt touchdown return for the Buckeyes since like 2014, which was against the Hoosiers, by the way, 10 years ago. And now Ohio State is up 21-7, still early in the third quarter, but it feels like the game's over at this point. It really, really does. Very costly. 2 special teams plays for the Hoosiers cost them badly, kept them out of this, got them out of this game. And Indiana not used to being behind. They were only behind for like in the first quarter against Michigan State. They rarely have trailed this season, and now they found themselves in a hole. They got another 3 and out punt. Curtis Rourke continues to be under pressure. Ohio State, after Indiana punts again, starts to throw on 24. This is when Chip Kelly started opening up the playbook a little bit, marching down the field, hitting different guys, using different guys. They put together a 10-play, 75-yard drive. Jelani Thurman, not a name you hear every day, caught a Will Howard pass for a touchdown, and now Ohio State has scored 28 unanswered points. It's 28-7, 6 minutes to go in the third quarter. Indiana still methodical because they can't protect Rourke. Never got anything going on the outside with the passing game at all, and so they just methodically stick to the running game at this point. And there was a 4th and 11 from the Ohio State 43-yard line. IU calls a timeout. Then they decide to punt. They're down by 3 scores at this point, 3 minutes to go in the third. Ohio State, they get the ball. We'll give Indiana some credit at this point for their defense because Ohio State had a punt from their own end zone. At this point, Indiana's like 6 of 15 passing for 50 yards. It was not what they're used to. Rourke got sacked a 4th time. He got sacked a 5th time. They couldn't do anything. Ended up in a 4th and 21 situation. Ohio State gets the ball back. They get a field goal to make it 31-7 with 9 minutes to go. Indiana did put a drive together at this point. They kind of looked like they did on their first drive when they scored. They got a little creative a little bit. They protected Rourke. They rolled him out a little bit. Tyson Lawton scored a touchdown. They go for 2. They get it with Omar Cooper. And now it's 31-15 late in the game. And if you're an Indiana fan, you're thinking, man, if we didn't have those 2 special teams disasters, this game would be a lot closer. It'd be a 1-score game, but it wasn't at this point, 31-15. And then Ohio State, Travion Henderson breaks free on the first play, decides to slide on the 1-yard line, not go in and burn some clock, but Buckeyes still wanted to score some more. They ran some plays. Will Howard ran it in, 35 seconds to go to make the final 38-15. Some people could say they were running up the score. Look, you could stop them. And I think there was some messaging there on that last touchdown, to be honest. Remember, Curt Cignetti and his opening meet and greet with Indiana fans when he got the job. He was out at Assembly Hall, said Purdue sucks, Ohio State, Michigan sucks. I think that was a little message there. I also think it was a message to Michigan for next week, who Ohio State plays for their season finale, their big rivalry game, because Michigan lost to this Indiana team by 5. I think they wanted to punch in another score to warn Michigan, hey, we're coming. Ryan Day said before the game and after the game, we must leave no doubt. Got to get this one. On the day, Will Howard, 22 of 26 for 201 yards, 2 touchdowns, had 1 interception. Cody Simon had 2.5 sacks. Jack Sawyer, a sack and a half, 5 sacks on the day. Overall, Curtis Rourke, only 8 of 18 through the air for 68 yards. I mean, this guy's been having 300 and 400-yard games all season long. This is 30 straight wins for Ohio State over Indiana, dating back to 1988. It is the 81st time Ohio State has beaten Indiana. Both teams fall to 10-1. So Ohio State not quite locked into the Big Ten championship game, but they're in the driver's seat. So we all know that Oregon is waiting. Ohio State has to beat Michigan next week to get in, and we're going to have a bunch of 1 loss. Well, they'll fall to 2 losses, and they'll fall presumably behind Indiana. If Indiana beats Purdue and Penn State, as long as they don't lose here. By the way, they're down as we speak right now to Minnesota, so that might not even be a factor at this point. But yeah, it might be Indiana with 1 loss getting in. So Ohio State has to avoid getting that second loss. They got to beat Michigan next week. Those are the situations. And the other question is now, does Indiana fall out of the top 12 teams or the 12 teams in the playoff chase? They've been 5th. How far do you fall from 5 when you lose to number 2? Historically, you don't fall that much. But you got to be pretty soundly. So I'm going to be interested in that. But 9th-ranked Ole Miss, they lost to Florida today. So there's more spaces here. Crazy weekend in college football. So get your comments if you want to jump on as we are live here. And we'll get some updates with some other games that are going on around the Big Ten. Crazy game between Illinois and Rutgers. We will get to all of that. Lots of in fact, let's jump on that right now. I want to take a look around. So Illinois just won 38-31. There were 3 scores in the last 3 minutes of this game. Luke Altmaier had a 30-yard touchdown run to take the lead 30-24 over Rutgers at Rutgers with 3:07 to go. But then Rutgers, Ethan Kaliak-Manis to Kyle Monungai for a 13-yard touchdown to take a 31-30 lead with 1:08 to go. But it's just gone final. Illinois with another touchdown to win 38-31. Absolutely amazing. We'll get more details. We'll be back at this on Monday morning with brand new podcast, recaps of all these games as well. But we'll talk about them here too, and we'll take some of your comments as well. Meanwhile, Iowa, they win at Maryland 29-13 to go to 7-4. Maryland falls to 4-7. Remember in this game situation with the quarterback with Iowa, they've had some injuries. Cade McNamara had been hurt. It turns out they were leaning toward him coming back and starting this game, but midweek we found out he wasn't gonna. And they ended up using Jackson Stratton, a walk-on transfer from Colorado State, who was 10 of 14 for 76 yards. Iowa wins 29-13. They do what they do. They run the ball. Caleb Johnson, his 21st touchdown today was a school record for Iowa. He had a career-high 35 carries for 164 yards. Kamari Moulton came in with a 68-yard touchdown run for 114 yards on the day. Drew Stevens, 5 field goals, 3 of them long. Billy Edwards left the game with an injury, but Iowa wins that game. Last night, Friday night, Michigan State, they beat Purdue 24-17. Michigan State needs a win next week to become bowl eligible. They have Rutgers at home. This would be great for Jonathan Smith if they go bowling in their first year. Aiden Childs last night had 2 touchdown passes. They built a 3-touchdown lead. They held on to win. Boilers fall to 1-10, 0-8 in the Big Ten, and they face an angry Indiana team next week. All right. Games are going on right now as we are live here on Locked On Big Ten, plus some night games. We'll preview all of that. We'll hit some of your comments as well as we continue with a live version of Locked On Big Ten. And we'll get to all that as we're winding down the season. It's hard to believe next weekend's the last weekend of the regular season. So we'll have all that right here on a live version of Locked On Big Ten. Prize Picks. Check out Prize Picks. It's the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and millions of dollars billions of dollars actually in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to everybody. You can just pick more than or less than with a group of players and stats, and just wait and see. If you win, you can get up to 100 times your cash. If you win, go to Prize Picks and check it out. Tons of fun. They got a flex play where if you can still cash out if your lineup is not perfect. Sign up today, get $50 instantly when you play $5. And you don't even need to win to receive that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. So, for example, you can think of a player like Justin Jefferson and say more than 83.5 yards this weekend, and pair him up with Lamar Jackson, more than a touchdown and a half this weekend, and wait and see if you win. Download the app today for Prize Picks and use the code LOCKEDONCollege and get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. It is a ton of fun. Again, Prize Picks, run your game. All right, couple quick notes here as we are live on the weekend right after the Indiana-Ohio State game. Other games going on right now. We'll catch you up on all that. Illinois with this amazing back-and-forth game with Rutgers at the end. Want to ask you, if you're new here on the weekend, go ahead and subscribe. It's free. Hit the subscribe button. And then we're together for Big Ten stuff every day. We're out here talking about the entire Big Ten. You can subscribe, share, and like and follow Locked On Big Ten for free wherever you get your podcasts. And again, that is each and every day. Don't forget our website, talkbig10.com. Christmas shopping right there. In addition to all of our podcasts, you can get your favorite team jerseys, hats, sweaters, jackets, all that right there. Talkbig10.com. We will have that for you. Just go ahead and click that on after you're done with the live podcast here. I want to thank you, though, for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen each and every day, especially you everydayers out there on that check us out. We always love it. All right, so let's get caught up with some other things that are going on live around the Big Ten. It is a crazy day. Right now, Penn State and Minnesota. Again, Minnesota is up 7-0 in that game. We talked about this game throughout the week. Penn State coming in at 9-1. I say they can't sleep on Minnesota. It's a cold day, a raucous crowd at Minnesota today. They're ready. They have a very good defense. They have a very good running game. Max Brosmer is a better quarterback than I expected this year. But like I warned you, for Minnesota, their secondary has like 16 interceptions this year, although Penn State traditionally does not turn the ball over. But right now it's 7-0 at the end of the first quarter. Minnesota with the lead in that game. Also, Michigan is out on top 10-0 at home against Northwestern. Khalil Mullings had an early touchdown there to take the 7-0 lead, but again, now 10-0 for Michigan. And the other game that we're looking at, which I spent a lot of time talking about, that I thought was the most interesting game, was Wisconsin and Nebraska. Both teams 5-5. Both teams need a win for bowl eligibility down to this game and next week, and that's it. Right now, that game is tied at 7 going into the second quarter. Braden Locke has a touchdown pass in this game, and Heinrich Harburg has a 5-yard touchdown run. He came in and spelled, of course, Dylan Raiola is playing in this game. So a lot going on right now as we're live. I mentioned Michigan a moment ago. Go back on our YouTube channel. They had big news this week. If you want all the details, they got Bryce Underwood, the 5-star quarterback out of Belleville, Michigan. He flipped from LSU to go to Michigan. It was the biggest news for Michigan this week in Ann Arbor. Meanwhile, we've got games tonight, of course. We've got UCLA, and they are hosting USC. That is the night game, the late game tonight in the Big Ten. And interesting story here. Of course, USC 5-5, UCLA 4-6. This will be 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 Pacific. And look, no matter what, it's going to be a disappointing year for the USC Trojans. And they got Notre Dame next, by the way. But at least USC has shown some life here with that. They're coming off. They had a 3-game winning streak broken, but they started to win some games here. And if they win today against USC and they win next week against Fresno, they're bowl eligible after a 1-5 start. That would be remarkable for them. All right. In the meantime, I want to poke in on some comments here. Jeff checking in with the OH, Ohio. Very good. Carla, always a long time listener and viewer. She finished it with an IO. Ohio. Go Bucks. A well-earned win by Ohio State today. And Andrew checking in. Glad that can be settled on the field. My questions are answered. Donnie checking in. Ohio State was dominant today. No bye for them going into the playoffs. Oregon will be fresh, and we'll see if the Buckeyes have some stamina. Yeah, and as we capped it, it's not the guys still got to win against Michigan to get in, but they're in the driver's seat. It's and they're ready to go. And typically, what Ohio State does as soon as they finish their next to last game, there's no, hey, let's celebrate and enjoy the win for 24 hours like they do each and every week. As soon as the game is over, this goes back to Urban Meyer and Ryan. They immediately turn the page. Michigan next. They had it up on the scoreboard next week as soon as the game went 0. That's just what they do. That's their mindset. That's the big game for rivalry weekend next weekend. We will take a look at rivalry weekend as we are live here on Locked On Big Ten here on a Saturday afternoon going into a Sunday tomorrow. We will be the nation's first look at week 14 and rivalry week. That's coming up in 1 minute right here on Locked On Big Ten live. Let me tell you about some things here. ZBiotics. This is a pre-alcohol probiotic drink. It is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. This would be good to have for the holidays, right? When you drink, alcohol gets converted into this toxic byproduct in your gut. And it's this byproduct, not dehydration or anything else, that makes you feel bad the next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. So just remember to make ZBiotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. Make it your first drink of the day, and you'll be good to go. Just drink responsibly, and you'll feel great. ZBiotics.com/LockedOnCollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On College at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money. No questions asked. Remember to head to ZBiotics.com/LockedOnCollege to use the code LockedOnCollege at checkout for 15% off. And games are fun to watch, but they're even more fun if you have a little something with FanDuel. Tackle the NFL, for example. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers can bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place your live bets in the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, do some live betting. It's awesome. You can check out the stats, the scores, right there on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com today and join. You get started again with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Sunday Night Football, Eagles and Rams. Philly's a 3-point favorite. I actually like the Rams in this one. They're starting to play steady. I like it. The number's at 50.5. Might go over. I think it might go over. Go to FanDuel.com. Check it out. FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. As we continue live here on Locked On Big Ten, post-game reaction to the early games. Ohio State asserting itself with the win over the Indiana Hoosiers. And let's see, Derby checking in. He was upset with Ryan Day going for that touchdown in the end, even though Travion Henderson had slid and downed it at the 1. They still punched it in. Will Howard went in. I know some people are going to say that. Normally, I would. I think that was sending a message. I do. It was unnecessary, but he felt, look, I want to send a message to Michigan. I want to send a message, a little friendly tap to Curt Cignetti, who said some things about Ohio State and Michigan and Purdue almost a year ago. Whatever. It's over. It's in the books. You're probably not alone in thinking about all of that as well. And Carla says, hey, Google 3815. Yeah, I mean, right, of course, Cignetti famous for saying, hey, I win, Google me. And I'm an Indiana alum. I love all Big Ten, but I'm an Indiana alum. That hurts, Carla. That hurts. But that's going to be going around. That's part of the deal. And Ohio State with a big, easy win, 38-15 against the Hoosiers today. All right, let's take the nation's first look ahead at Week 14, rivalry week. Got Minnesota at Wisconsin. a couple Friday games. That's a Friday game. That's at 12 o'clock noon Eastern on CBS Friday, Black Friday, day after Thanksgiving. Nebraska is at Iowa. That's the 7:30 NBC Friday night game. So those are 2 Friday games next week. Meanwhile, Michigan and Ohio State, the game, noon Eastern, Fox. By the way, Minnesota has scored a field goal. They are now up on Penn State 10-0. Upset alert. Also, Illinois is at Northwestern next week. The Battle of the State of Illinois. That'll be at Wrigley. That's at noon on the Big Ten Network. And also Purdue and Indiana. That's traditionally a noon kickoff. I don't have a kickoff time as we speak right now. It's either going to be 3:30, 7, or 7:30. All right. I don't know if that does anybody any good right now, but they were waiting to see if they were going to win today against Ohio State. They didn't. So we'll see. Maybe it'll be earlier at 3:30. I'm not sure yet. Maryland is at Penn State. That's the 3:30 game on the Big Ten Network. And Rutgers is at Michigan State, 3:30 Eastern on FS1. And then Fresno State is at UCLA in the Rose Bowl for a 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific game. Again, at the Rose Bowl, Fresno at UCLA. And if UCLA beats USC today and beats Fresno next week, they're going bowling. And then we got Washington at Oregon. Again, that's another one. They were waiting to see where to put it. Oregon has already locked up a spot in the Big Ten championship game. They're coming off a bye this week. Big game against Washington. Dan Lanning hasn't beaten Washington yet. I believe he's 0-3, but that game will either be 3:30 Eastern, 7 or 7:30 Eastern, to be determined shortly. And then Notre Dame at Southern Cal, USC. That's the big rivalry game. That will also be either 7:30, 7 or 7:30 Eastern. That's as we speak right now. That could change pretty soon. By the time we get through the weekend, we'll have that. We'll recap all the times next week on Locked On Big Ten with our regularly scheduling. Derby answering back. Signetti could take the business there. Watch his post-game presser. I'm going to go watch that right now. I'm sure he said, hey, we got beat. We got to get better. We got things to do. But I will check that out. I'm sure he was asked about some of those comments and as well. But thank you for that, Derby, as well. And thank you to all of you guys for checking in live on Locked On Big Ten. Tell your friends about us. Share, like it. And if you haven't yet, subscribe. And then don't forget to peruse some of our past podcasts or maybe buy some merchandise ahead of Christmas from your favorite schools. All at our website, talkbig10.com. You see the crawl on the bottom. That's talkbig10.com. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll be right back at it Monday, kicking off Rivalry Week. We can't wait. Thanks for being part of this here today. For Locked On Big Ten Live, I'm Craig Shemon. Talk to you next time.